Danny, let's just break this down again. The judge giving Fani Willis a decision, basically saying your entire team can leave this case or you can push Nathan Wade off of the case. Of course, her former partner and at the center of these allegations. Talk about the implications of the judge's ruling here, Danny.
And McAfee has given the DA's office a Hobson's choice, which is to say there is no choice at all. Either the entire office is disqualified or one special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, must leave. The choice is clear. The DA's office will stay on the case. Nathan Wade is all but gone from the case. So the top line summary could be defense motion granted, but barely. The only net effect is that they've removed Nathan Wade, but procedurally they have caused considerable delay. And while the judge has allowed the DA's office to stay on the case, it was hardly a glowing endorsement of the DA's conduct. Among other things, the judge said the DA was willing to conceal her relationship with Wade and called the entire prosecution as having an odor of mendacity. So hardly an endorsement of the DA's conduct here, but the DA's office stays on. Interesting to note that had the judge found an actual conflict, disqualification would have been mandated, but he also concluded that where there was only an appearance of impropriety, which he found in this case, disqualification was not mandated. So the net effect will be the DA's office stays on the case.
Well, Danny, let's talk a little bit about what we witnessed during this trial and the fact that DA Fani Willis took the stand, essentially bucking the advice of her own counsel, surprising just about everyone. She defended herself. She said there was no financial impropriety. There was no conflict of interest in this case. The judge effectively ruling the defendants did not present sufficient evidence proving their allegations of a conflict of interest. What do you make of her decision to take the stand, that dramatic moment? Did it ultimately help her?
Politically, it likely helped her. But I've said that technically speaking, from an evidence, a rules of evidence standpoint, it was not what you would call good testimony, especially by the highest ranking DA in the county. She often didn't answer the question asked, to the point where Judge McAfee warned her at one point, this is the elected DA, that he might have to strike her testimony if she didn't answer questions. But of course, politically, I think she achieved her message, which was taking the stand and publicly refuting these allegations. Was it credible testimony? In fact, ultimately, in this opinion, I think Fani Willis's testimony was less a problem than Terrence Bradley's testimony could have been. But Judge McAfee signaled during the hearing where he was going to go when Judge McAfee, who could have taken the text messages between defense attorney Merchant and Terrence Bradley as substantive evidence, ultimately concluded that even though Terrence Bradley said absolutely when talking about his knowledge of the relationship between Wade and Willis, that absolutely was not supported by the source of that information, and therefore those text messages did not create substantive evidence that met the burden for the defense. Really, this sounds complicated, but the bottom line was that the judge found that all of this testimony, including Yurti, which he really disposed of in one line in his opinion, none of it met the defense's burden of showing the conflict, which would have required disqualification. But it did create that appearance of impropriety, and that's how Judge McAfee arrived at this choice that he has now delivered to the DA's office.
Danny, let me ask you big picture, because we've talked about extensively the Trump team's strategy of delay, delay, delay. This case has been delayed. The documents case has been delayed. Of course, the case surrounding January 6th has been delayed while the Supreme Court waits to hear arguments about whether former President Trump deserves full immunity from any type of legal action. What do you make of where things stand? We're also learning that the hush money case in New York may now be delayed, Danny.
A couple things. So delay means different things in different cases. For the state court cases, delay means something different. There are 2 criminal state court cases, and there are 2 federal criminal cases. Delay means something different, completely different in each of these cases, and here's why. As to the federal cases, if they are still pending, and if Donald Trump is elected, he can simply get rid of those cases. He can either appoint an attorney general who will dismiss them, or he can try to pardon himself. But delay means victory if Donald Trump is elected and if the cases are still pending. Not the same result with the state court cases. Those cases can continue, and Trump has no power to pardon himself or to have an attorney general get rid of, say, the Fulton County, Georgia case. In fact, in Georgia, the rules for a pardon are much more stringent. The governor, it's not even the governor that can pardon. It is actually a situation where a defendant actually has to serve time, and then there's a panel. So the bottom line is, in Georgia, as long as there's a DA willing to keep prosecuting this case, it will not go away. The challenge is that, if history is any indicator, in Fulton County, these kinds of complicated RICO cases take a long time under ordinary circumstances. The last high-profile RICO case took no less than, maybe more than, 8 months just in jury selection. This is life in the state courts, particularly in city-type counties where you have high volume, where judges have many other cases on their calendar, and even one delay can send the trial date way off into the distance by months. So delay certainly helps Trump on all fronts, but it helps him less in the state court cases. It helps him less in Atlanta, in Fulton County, than it does in the federal cases, where delay in federal court for Trump can mean victory.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.